All right. So, like I said, at this point in the story, I was working as a counselor at a girls' home in Vermont. Really neat ministry, really neat time, which is why I said I'd love to one day do a series set there. But I was still nursing this just confusion and disappointment about the way things had worked out with Scott. Because, I had told God, I don't want to give my heart away to someone that I'm not going to marry. And then I felt like God saying, okay, it's all right. You're going to marry him. Go ahead and give your heart away. And then I felt like God said, oh, never mind. Move on. And I just couldn't move on. And I remember one day we had, the counselors had to rotate doing hall duty. So as the girls would get ready for school and get ready for their morning and stuff, there's this like very detailed morning routine that everyone went through. And one of the counselors was up in the hall, just kind of making sure everyone was doing what they're doing and, not taking too long in the showers and stuff like that. So I had my Bible up with me, and I've never had anything happen like this before or since, but just really felt like God telling me three numbers, like read Psalm, if I remember right, 45, 85, and maybe 60 or something along those lines. But anyway, I went and I read these three Psalms. They were each Psalms about restoration. And it was where God really put on my heart. And I found myself really praying, okay, God, restore my relationship with Scott. Whereas before, like I said, I kept trying to sacrifice Scott to the Lord. And it was so silly of me. Like I would set out to pray and kind of tell God, okay, I'm over him for good now. He's yours, not mine. And that prayer would turn into, please help us get back together almost every time. So like I said, I felt like a really bad believer. Like I just wasn't surrendering this to God. And then I was reading these Psalms about restoration and praying that God would restore our relationship with Scott. And we're in October again. So it's a year since the first email. I've been at the girls' home for maybe 2 to 4 months by now. I don't remember exactly. And it was my day off. So we each got a day off, but I didn't have a car. So I was still at the house. But I was checking email, on our one shared house computer. And it was an email from Scott. And it was just so, hey, how's it going? Hope things are going well for you. And that was it. And I was so thrown off and so confused. So I went upstairs and started to pray. And I was kind of mad at God. I'm like, God, what are you doing? Why are you putting me through this? Like, I'm on this emotional roller coaster. I thought I was doing my best to get over him. So I was like, God, what are you doing? And really felt God saying, actually, I'm answering that prayer you prayed just a few days ago. Remember that whole thing about restoration? Like, I'm answering that. And so we started cautiously talking again, like a few weeks, I think, even before we started talking on the phone again. Still didn't talk about our relationship. It was more just kind of catching up. There was a lot going on at the girls' home, so we had a lot to talk about. And in the meantime, so we're going to fast forward a couple weeks. It was November. I remember it was November 2nd, and we were in church. And just got this very clear, and I need to just put in a caveat, all this parts of the story, you're going to feel like I'm one of those Christians who like gets words from the Lord every single day. And I'm not. Like this whole story, there were a lot of times that God, very clearly spoke to me. But that's not like an everyday kind of thing in my Christian walk right now. But really felt like God was telling me 60 days. I'm like, well, 60 days. Oh, yeah. And also 6 months. So I started praying about this because those numbers were just in my head. Like, what are you talking about, God? And when I prayed, it was, okay, 60 days we're going to be engaged. 6 months we're going to be married. I'm like, no, that's ridiculous. Because at this point, like I said, we weren't talking about romance. We weren't talking about our relationship. To be honest, when we did talk on the phone, it was still very awkward, like just 10, 15 minutes is all like, hey, how was your day? Okay, bye. I'm like, that's not going to happen. But still, like, it just wouldn't go away. So I said, okay, God, I've never heard of you giving somebody an exact date before. So you need to like show me that this is legit. Otherwise, it just sounds too weird. And I was reading through Jeremiah at the time where like very clearly God says, okay, in 70 years, I'm going to bring the exiles back. I'm like, oh, okay, I guess you did give people exact dates before. So I started praying about this whole, 60 days thing. I called one of my friends from college. That's the reason I remember it was November 2nd, because it was her birthday. And I told her, like, I really feel like God's saying in 60 days we're going to be engaged, but that's just ridiculous because, at this point, he's not even my boyfriend or anything. So very practically, she got out her calendar. It's like, oh, 60 days, that's New Year's Eve. I need to rewind a little bit and let you guys know that I had, in the time before Scott and I even started emailing again, got tickets to the Urbana Missions Conference. And I was going to be there over Christmas Eve. I'm like, oh, okay, well, Scott's going to be there too. And it's really funny because when Scott tells a story, he's like, oh, yeah, I went to Urbana to be a presenter with my mission group. And she went to Urbana to get engaged to me, which wasn't what happened because I actually bought the tickets before we were even talking again. I just really felt like it would be a neat experience because I was so very missions minded at the time. And it was a big enough thing. Like I figured I could go the whole time and not see Scott if he was there, which I could have. But anyway, so this whole 60 days thing was in my head. I did go to the Urbana Missions Conference. Scott and I met there, and he proposed on the 30th. So he proposed with a date as we were actually engaged in 59 days from when I started counting, and married 6 months later. So that is the story of how we met, how we fell in love, how we had to take that time off. And I'm really glad we did have that time off, because one of the biggest things that I realized was I really had been kind of making him an idol in my life. And going through that season where I had to realize that, God himself was going to be enough for me, I think it really helped my spiritual walk. I would have never wanted to give up that year working at the girls' home in Vermont. That was just a very formative year. I met some really neat people there, really neat mentors who helped Scott and me through some of the drama that had kind of torn us apart in the first place. So we have been married now. We married in 2004. So 13 years, we've got 3 kids, and, God's really blessed us. Way back, when we were engaged, I wanted to be an author, and Scott said, well, one day you can write our story. I'm like, oh, well, that's cute and sweet. Maybe one day I will. And then I did start writing, and even then, like, I didn't write romance at the beginning anyway. So I'm like, okay, well, one day I might get to it. And then the idea popped into my head. So the fun thing is, at the time of this recording, my husband still doesn't know that I've turned our love story into a book. So he knows I've written a romance. He knows that it's called What Dreams May Come, but he hasn't read the description or anything. That's probably going to come out in a few weeks. And I might even be able to get a video of his reaction when he finds that out. But anyway, thank you for listening about our journey, and check out What Dreams May Come if you want. You can also, just one more thing I want to add, like, all these stories are cute and sweet. And that's one peeve I have about just romance novels, is that it can be so cute and sweet that we forget that relationships do take work and they are hard. So that's why, in addition to the romance, I also have my Orchard Grove Christian women's fiction series. And those talk about, like, the struggles that happen within a marriage and things like that. So What Dreams May Come, again, is the romance based off of how Scott and I met and fell in love. And if you wanted something kind of deeper, Beauty from Ashes is also semi-autobiographical, because that's sort of based off of our experiences when Scott and I had a baby who was in the NICU for a while. So you can get sort of both pictures, the really good, sweet times like the story I've just told you, and then just the terrible times that we went through that you can read about, at least the fictional version, in Beauty from Ashes. So thanks again for listening, and I'll talk to you later.